So welcome back. We're here today with another wonderful woman making a difference in the lives of other women. And today we're continuing our conversation on igniting the divine feminine and what that looks like for our businesses, taking it from hustle to holy. And today we have Kasey Jones. Kasey, welcome. Thank you for participating and being part of this series. Great to have you.
Oh, so good to be here. Thank you for including me.
So Kasey is a leading thought leadership and growth strategy coach. She's founded A Better Jones with a mission and a dream to help founders build successful, high growth businesses to harness the power of what makes them different. I love that. Thought leadership is where it's at. And so welcome again. So glad you're here. We're just going to dive right into this conversation. And before we get started on this Q&A about the topic of the divine feminine into our businesses, give us a little background about who you are, where you grew up.
Yeah. So I grew up, we moved around a lot when I was a kid. So I spent the first half of my childhood in New York. We moved to a small town in New York. We moved to Miami when I was 11. Talk about culture shock. Lived there for 5 years, spent the last 2 years of high school in California. So I actually went to 3 high schools in 3 states in 3 years. A lot of my childhood was being a bit of a vagabond, always kind of starting fresh, meeting new people. And that I think that kind of set me up for gravitating towards a lot of challenge and being okay being alone, which, let's be honest, entrepreneurship can be kind of a lonely road. And so I think that kind of helped set me up for things. But I've lived in Portland, Oregon. I moved here to go to college, lived here for the last 19 years, which sounds crazy. Started my career in sales, and I know we're going to talk about this a little because that was definitely when I was dominated by the masculine energy, and since made the transition to marketing and growth and working with startups in just a variety of ways.
How do you see that your upbringing supported you with where you're at today?
Well, I think it did help me learn how to kind of chart my own course in a lot of ways. I'll also say my mom was an entrepreneur. So my mother was a really successful decorator and had her office out of the house. So she would actually, when I was a kid, there were certain days where she'd come into my room in the morning and she'd be like, "Do you have anything big today?" And I would be like, "I'm 8, I've got nothing big. Like, what do you got?" And she would take me to the design center. And so we would spend all day going to these big like design houses where you're talking just giant racks filled with fabric and wallpaper and all this stuff. And I would sit there and I'd go through them with her. And then she would always ask my opinion when she was putting together like palettes and, suggestions for a client's new living room or whatever. And so I got to play a part in this role of creativity. I got to see her be this really badass entrepreneur. And it's funny because, my dad was very successful in business, and my mom thought for years that all of my drive must come from my father. And I was like, "Are you kidding? Like, it's all from you and watching you build your own thing and do it your way." And it was always really inspiring to me.
That's beautiful. And she sounds dynamic. And the fact that you were 8 and she brought you into this world, like, it seems like such a kind of like your imagination probably just exploded, I would imagine, just being around the creativity, and she's asking your suggestions and your feedback. How empowering. That's beautiful.
Yeah, it was really fun. I feel very fortunate for having that experience. And she's a dynamo. She's a truly fabulous woman.
So again, we're talking about the masculine and feminine, and there's beautiful things to both sides, right? No matter what gender, you're relating to, we have the masculine and feminine as a human being. We have these energies. It's just a matter of tapping in and tuning in and having them be in harmony and in alignment with each other. And having them play together is really where the magic happens. So at what point in your life, and you already kind of talked on this, did you find that you were operating very much out of your masculine, or you were really forming to a masculine environment that just didn't really feel true to you?
Yeah, so the first part of my career was spent surrounded by men. So I started my career actually working in politics. I worked on, this is going to age me, I worked on the John Kerry for President campaign. I was actually third in charge of national women's outreach at headquarters when I was still in college. But it's like 80%, 85% men on the campaigns. And then my first few jobs out of college is I worked in sales. I graduated college having no clue what a person could do for a living, let alone what I wanted to do. And so I just kind of fell into sales, and I was always one of, if not the only woman on the team. And so, I think I had 3 or 4 years where I was the only woman in the office. And I think it took a long time for me to start to realize all of the ways that I was kind of denying myself in that process. I laughed at jokes that were not funny. I, felt this need to be able to like outdrink the boys and stay up late and talk trash and be competitive and all of these other things. And sure, there's a part of me that like that worked for, but it was not letting me kind of show up as my whole self. And later on, I started to realize that it made me sort of feel complicit in creating environments and dynamics that were hostile to women and hostile to that feminine energy. And what was very interesting for me is I always had a very, very different style as a salesperson. Like, I'm not aggressive when I'm selling. I make really strong relationships, deep connection with clients, and it would boggle my boss's minds. Like, there was one job I had where my first 6 months on the job, I outsold 7 men combined. And they couldn't understand why I wasn't standing on the phone and really loud and really aggressive. And they kept being like, no, you need to try it this way. And I'd be like, I'm killing it with my own style. I think I got this. And so it took, I think, much later in my career before I started to look back and realized how out of alignment I really was. And it wasn't until I made the transition to marketing, got more senior in my roles, that I started to just feel a little bit truer to myself and kind of find my own rhythm. And without me even realizing it, it really was me owning my femininity and showing up as a woman, not just a person.
Yeah. And so you talk about just, it's kind of naturally, it seems like it just ignited within you, or do you remember a particular event that had happened that you really realized that, oh, here's the masculine that's slowly going away to this divine feminine that wants to come into play?
Well, the memory that really sticks out is more me being like, wow, this isn't for me. I didn't know what I was moving towards yet, but it's very common in sales teams. Once a year, they usually do something that is known as sales kickoff or a sales rally, where the whole sales team gets together. You spend like 3 days in training and all this other stuff, lots of drinking. And it was the third night. It was the last night, and they were doing the big award ceremony. We're out at this really fancy restaurant in San Francisco. Everyone's dressed up. And this was a few months, 6 months maybe, after the movie The Wolf of Wall Street came out. this is not a movie where like you really want to emulate the people in that movie. And literally the chief revenue officer at the company I was working for, he gets up to like, give his speech and give out some awards and like pump up the whole sales team. And he started doing the chest bumping, like grunting thing from Wolf of Wall Street. And everyone is doing it, even the like few women in the room. And I just remember looking around and being like, what is this? Like, oh my God, I do not belong here. Like, this is not for me. And I quit I think like a week or 10 days later. And I don't think I knew yet where the direction I really wanted to go in, but I knew that I wanted something that was more driven by my values and more driven by human connection and having an impact than bravado.
Yeah, great for listening. And I think that's the biggest thing, is just trusting and having faith in our inner guidance. Because like you said, you didn't know where it was going. You just know that it felt true for you, and it was aligned with you and what you're up to. So that's great. So in what ways do you continue to nurture your divine feminine and make sure that that side of you continues to stay ignited? Because you're a businesswoman, and it's wearing many hats when you're an entrepreneur. And sometimes, like you said, it can be lonely. And so there is a lot of masculine structures and things like this that come into play as building your own business. So what do you do for yourself to make sure that you're staying in alignment?
Well, so I think a big part for me is kind of having a spirituality and sort of mindset practice. So I'm very keen on, my meditation routine, on my exercise routines, the things that get me more in line with myself and more in touch with myself. I'm also a huge believer in, kind of think that everybody on the planet should be in therapy. And I think that has been very helpful for me of having that kind of constant check-in of where I am and how I'm feeling, and helping me recognize when I'm not on track. One thing that I have just started to, I'm a big learner. And I think this is another important thing of just constantly, feeding my brain, feeding my soul with new information. And something that I am absolutely thrilled about. And it's funny because this happened by coincidence, right? As you and I started talking about doing this. I have recently read the book In the Flow, that is all about cycle syncing and about how you sync your entire life, your work, your exercise, your eating, your sex life, everything to your cycle, and how so many of the problems we face as women are because we are trying to set our entire lives up on the circadian rhythm, which is in line with the male hormonal cycles, and not with the infradian rhythm, which is our hormonal cycle. And reading this book was like fireworks going off in my brain the whole time, of major aha moments. And I'm early in the process, but it already feels amazing. It feels like I am listening to myself and my body in this way that I didn't know I wasn't, but as soon as I started, it feels like, I don't know, being seen or something. And I'm amazed, and I kind of can't stop talking about it with everyone in my circle, because I wish that we all at least were made aware of this as a possibility and of these options for ourselves. And so few of us are.
And we get to know ourselves on such a deeper level when we can be in tune with the cycle and give ourselves some grace when, we're going. We're amazing creatures, for Pete's sake. And
Exactly.
so honoring that, right?
Yeah.
Honoring it.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I think one of the things that they talk about that's so powerful is this idea of giving ourselves some more understanding. Like, how many times have you been in the middle of a workout, like during your period, and you're like exhausted and you're like, no, I gotta grind through it. And it's like, really? Like, the idea that we could actually give ourselves permission to work with our body instead of always fighting this fight. Um, I've learned that in other ways in the past, but not in this format. And honestly, it feels like a liberation, just the idea of it.
So this coming into this book is new for you. Do you see how this will be something that you may incorporate into the way you operate your business now?
Yeah, I really do. So one of the things that's cool about it is, they really talk about how our kind of hormonal cycle influences what are sort of our strengths during a particular time. So thinking through, like, okay, there's certain times when we are more creative, certain times when we are more collaborative and communicative, certain times when we're more sort of task oriented or analytical or into the deep work. And so what I've already started to do is start to think about, okay, how can I plan my kind of projects and my work cycle along with my cycle, so that I can kind of set myself up for more success. And one of the first things I did, honestly, was I've, the last 4 months for me have been very stressful, and lots of other things going on. And I decided to take my first day back to getting a massage and doing a detox bath and a sauna.
Mm.
And I did that, I did that during my cycle. And like, the idea of taking just some time to let myself relax and rejuvenate, when normally I'm somebody that like works most of the weekend and kind of grinds away. And what was incredible about it is I came back from that so motivated, so energized, feeling so creative with all of these different ideas. And it was this great reminder of that, when I am more in tune with my body, when I give myself that space, really beautiful things happen.
You're in the flow.
Yeah, exactly.
That's so great. So I want to talk about your business for a
Yeah,
little bit, because your focus is on, leading thought leaders, which is
yeah.
amazing. So how do you bring in the divine feminine into some of the women, or even men in that case, that you work with?
So look, a lot of what I help my clients with is on building really authentic personal brands and kind of growing their status as thought leaders in their industry. And one of the things that most of my clients originally struggle with is being their whole and authentic selves in a public forum. And we often think that, we get this imposter syndrome, men and women, and I do work with a ton of men, and we all talk about this, is, how do you show up and be vulnerable in public? And it doesn't mean that you have to reveal super private things about yourself, but being willing to really open up and to share and to kind of lean into that, it's an incredibly powerful step that someone can take, this finding your authentic voice and sharing it with the world, because we all need that. We need that connection. And with COVID and everybody being home, we need it even more. And it can be terrifying when you haven't done it before. But when you do, when you lean into that discomfort and you're willing to share something honest and true about yourself, I don't care how early you are in your journey, there's a bunch of people that are a couple steps behind you, and you can make the difference in making someone have that aha moment that they can do it. And I think it's even more important for women because there's fewer of us in positions of power. There's fewer of us, taking these public stances in business. And so if we can help that young woman or that little girl who has these dreams but looks around and is like, I don't see anyone like me in these positions, if we can just make them just feel like a little bit more confident that they can do that thing, like true miracles can happen and we can create a bigger impact than we think we can.
You got it, girl. You got it, girl. Like, and that was one of the things when I was putting this together and researching all of you amazing women, I was like, if one person hears one thing from one of these women that changes their whole trajectory on life, like it just takes them to, that is amazing. And so what you're up to in supporting women, especially, I mean, I love you men, I really do. And we get to have more women in leadership positions. We really do.
Without a doubt.
We just bring a different energy that is beautiful, and it's only found in a woman.
Yeah, and
in my
I
opinion.
think no, yeah, I think you are spot on, and I think, look, I think it's really interesting. There's been a bunch of research that has come out recently about how it's like, and I wish I could remember the exact statistic, but they did these surveys all around the world asking people, both men and women, if they thought the world would be a better place if there were more women in charge. And it's like, I think it was like 80% of people said, yeah, the world would be a better place if the leaders thought more like women, I think was how they actually worded it. And you look at, and I'm totally blanking on her name, but the Prime Minister of New Zealand, she is better results with COVID, incredible, like, uprising in support of the shooting at the mosque there, like all of these other things where she's this leader that makes everybody else kind of look around and be like, whoa, she's doing it in this very, very feminine way, and in this way that is powerful and it is strong while still being empathetic and warm. And we need more of that. And I think that things are slowly changing. It's not as fast as I would like, but I think I'm with you, where if we can inspire one woman to be willing to kind of take the risk to do something bold that she wouldn't have done before, it's this ripple effect. And if you can get all of these different ripples to kind of converge, incredible things can happen.
Absolutely. Yes. Thank you for all that you're doing and bringing thought leaders to the surface, really. I think a lot of people don't identify themselves or think of themselves as a thought leader per se, but it ends up, that's, I think, what they end up gravitating into, because I think they're just truly being about something bigger than themselves, right? And you're the person that gets to really help shine the light on them, because sometimes that there's it really takes somebody else to kind of really support lifting that person up, I feel like, right?
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
like you're that person.
I certainly try to be. I want to be every entrepreneur, especially the women's kind of personal cheerleader. My ultimate vision is I want to be the modern day tattooed cursing female version of Mr. Rogers, but for entrepreneurs. So any way that I can do that, you all let me know.
Love it. Well, you declared it, so it's just a matter of time. So there you go.
Exactly.
So as we come into closing, you have a free offer for our audience?
Yeah, I do. So because the number one thing that I hear from entrepreneurs when they're like, I don't know about this personal brand thing, I don't know about this thought leadership thing, they just don't know how to get started. And so I'm sharing with everybody my kind of 5 super easy steps to unapologetically build a powerful personal brand. And the whole idea is it's to get you started and to help you realize that you can do this.
Ooh, that's dynamic. Oh, that's great. That's awesome. Thank you for that. Thank you for sharing that. Any final words for our audience today?
I think the only thing I'll say is I think everybody listening knows somewhere deep down in their gut that they are born, they are destined to make an impact. And believe in that, find your path to doing it, seek out other women that will support you, because I guarantee they are out there, and start doing it, because it might be the tiniest impact when you get started, but I promise you will get addicted to that feeling that you can make a difference in the lives of other people.
Thank you, Kasey. It's been a pleasure to have you be a part of this series, and keep doing what you're doing, girlfriend, because mighty things are coming your way. And it's so cute. Every time I hear your name, Kasey Jones, I want to sing the Grateful Dead song. So thank you again. And thank you all for tuning in. Until next time, bye for now.